Okay, welcome back. We're going to be looking at scenario 6, which is actually going to be a strip mall fire upon arrival. And scenario 6 is going to be pretty basic. We're going to try to round this off and really get into how you're actually going to set up with the savers. So let's actually look at this strip mall here. So, as you arrive on scene of your strip mall here, it looks like there's a lot of cars around. Going to be pretty basic for commercial occupancy. And again, when you break this down and you give your condition report, I will look at your strip configurations or your strip mall configurations as 3 different types. You have your retail strips, you have your office strip malls, and you have your industrial. So this would actually be a retail. For the most part, they're pretty similar as far as tactics go, but it actually changes as far as what's inside, what your values are, and your property to be saved. But this is going to be a retail strip mall. As you continue to get around on the outside of the structure, and everybody moves their cars out of the way, hopefully, it's going to be a lot easier for you to operate. But that might not always be the case. It seems like a lot of times when we do training, we'll give you a picture of a building like this, and there's no cars and there's no people in the way. But that first picture is probably a lot more reflective of what we deal with in the real world. As you can see, this fire is actually going to be well established in the massage parlor and starting to possibly extend towards the delta side, or this actually could be just part of the overhang and that's drift smoke underneath. So you want to make sure that you're verifying that, getting inside there and seeing what you got going on. As you continue to go and get your 360, you're going to get around to the outside. It looks like this is actually a fairly large retail strip mall with multiple occupancies, and it actually is going to L-shape around to the outside as well. And then once you get to the Charlie side, you have access ladders for the roof, a lot of flat space with a lot of room back here, and doors on the Charlie side to actually make entry or open up forcible for helping with your tactics and strategy. So that's kind of the layout of this. Let's walk through the slab profile, your safety profile. Again, you got heavy volume of fire, and it doesn't look like you got too many hazards as far as what's inside this building. Your life profile, if they are inside this unit, they unfortunately are probably not alive. There may be some survivable space in the Charlie side, but based on the smoke you have coming out of the Charlie side, this is well involved throughout the structure. There is life profile possibilities in your extension units or your exposure units, and those definitely need to be checked early on. Your air track on this, again, heavy fire. Because of this is the multitude of fire and not smoke, I can actually start doing fire flow formula. Based on this, I got about 10-foot spacing in my parking spaces. So let's just call this unit 30 feet by 50 feet and start calculating out that fire flow. So again, length times width divided by 3 is going to give me a baseline fire flow formula, so the square footage divided by 3. And then I can also add in a quarter for both of my exposures. So another 50% on top of that will equal my fire flow. So you can tell just by, if you're doing the math on that, I'm going to need more than even just a single 2.5. That 250 gallons per minute of that single 2.5 is not going to capture this fire enough. And if we want to keep it from spreading laterally, we got to put enough water on that fire to overcome it, or we're never going to stop the lateral fire spread problem. So that's kind of breaking down the slab here. My first in unit is really defensive. They're going to put a couple 2.5s into play or a deck gun. They can even assume command at that point. But from that point on, as you continue to get resources, you're in a defensive posture or transitional posture, but for us to actually make entry into the Bravo or the Delta sides or get on the roof, again, we got to have 2 in, 2 out in place, or a RIC team in place preferably. So as we continue to go through there, my first in unit's fighting a lot of fire here through defensive operations. My next in engine actually is going to assume a RIC standpoint to start getting the next in resources embedded. You can do the resources that are out here on 2.5s in a 2-out configuration, but I would rather just have a dedicated RIC company on this while we make entry and go over the fire in an ideal H capacity. So get that second engine to kind of form up a rig, get a rig 360. They can even start softening the structure. Get the Charlie side door open to help with keeping that fire from spreading through the attic laterally and giving it some flow path. Maybe even hook up to the FDC if there is one to get the sprinkler system going with a fire department connection. And then our next in unit is actually going to, between the next in engine and the truck company, we're going to pick a side to save, either the Bravo side or the Delta side. We're going to try to save both, but you have to pick one initially. So based on this, the first thing I'm actually going to look at is, again, life safety. That's my number one. If this is a strip mall where they've actually put in some type of handicapped daycare center, or mentally handicapped daycare center or something like that, then obviously I have a life hazard, and I'm going to pick the side based on that, life being the number one priority. Once I actually get past the life, I can actually look at hazards. So let's say on this side I have a pool supply company. I want to keep it out of that chlorine or keep it out of the chemicals, but a lot of times that's not going to be side by side with certain other things inside this strip mall. I'm also going to look at wind. If the wind is pushing that fire in certain directions, if it's over about 10 miles per hour, that's going to push that fire very rapidly, and it may choose the side for me. So I got life, I got hazards, I got wind direction. After that, I'm actually going to look at the value of what's inside the building, or those occupancies. So if I have a used bookstore on one side and I got a check cashing place on the other side, I'm going to be looking at the value. And the one that we always talk about as far as choosing the sides is usually square footage or real estate. Amazingly enough, that's actually last on my list. I'm going to look at those other things first. But another one that plays into it, and I don't know if you can see it in this screen setting, but if you actually go to the original screenplay for this fire incident, there's actually a for lease sign or an available sign in the window of your Bravo occupancy. So that may be an easy way to say, hey, I'm going to try to save the Delta side first. So if that's the case, we're going to go into Delta 1, see if there's actually fire in there, get a quick primary search done of the Delta 1 occupancy, and we're going to start pulling ceiling and checking for extension. So once they actually get inside that Delta extension and pull ceiling, if there's fire above them, then they may have to say that they're going to write off the A+ tutoring here and then go back to the dental office and start going towards the Delta 2. Again, it depends on how much you can actually hold it here. And it's got to be supported with the truck company doing a heat hole and then strip and trench cuts. Really tactically they're the same thing, but if you're going against or with the construction, then you're going to do that. So the truck company, if they're doing trench cuts, they're going with the construction. If they're doing strip, they're going against. Tactically though, we're trying to keep that fire from spreading laterally across here. And again, that's through proper hose line placement, enough gallons per minute to overcome the BTU, and getting those, basically pinching off the fire on both sides. So choose a side, one truck company, an engine company doing the extension checks, and then as additional alarms come in, then you can start supporting the Bravo side after you've completed the Delta side. So pick a side. So this is actually going to look in Savers, something like this. Your fire attack, whether you call that the fire attack group with multiple resources flowing water on whatever occupancies are on fire, or you call them Division A, that's up to your protocols. But either way, it's still going to be the fire attack portion, right? So let's say I have engine 1, I got engine 2 here, I got engine 3, actually maybe they were the second due, performing that RIC function, and then the truck is up on the roof. And then eventually I'm going to have a B and a D, and under that exposure I'm actually going to have those divisions. So underneath Division B I'm going to have engine 4, engine 5, under Division D I'm going to have engine 6, and engine 7. Now remember, I'm going to pick one side or the other. Let's say I started with the Delta side first, and whoever's in charge of that RIC group, that extension group or Delta division, I'm actually going to circle whoever's in charge. This is also going to take multiple trucks, one on each side at least, to get those strip cuts in place. Salvage is going to be something we're going to get done after the fact, and really you're getting those done inside each of these divisions, Bravo or Delta division. They're actually getting extension done, primary search done, as well as salvage done in those divisions. So you're taking care of these other portions of your SAVERS acronym within a division type of a thing, but the biggest thing that their function is going to be extension. So that's some of the baseline stuff of the strip mall, and hopefully you've had a good time in these 6 scenarios, kind of just breaking these down. So thanks again, Jessica Peralty with the SLAB SAVERS program.